and balanced vibration to everyone, and thank you for tuning in. I'm here as promised to shoot an amazing video today, really one of the most comprehensive that I think that will be on the internet. And it's because, of course, we've really gotten deep into the water for the last 5 years, and today we're going to show what we've learned. But before I do that, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Sevan Bomar. Some people do know me from AstroQuest. Some people know me from The Resistance. And today, it doesn't matter if you know me at all, because what you're actually going to learn is going to change your life. Let's go ahead and get to this. Right away, and let me see if I can get on this side of the board. There we go. Right away, just to make this very simple without going into deep levels of understanding about the activation and about the body, which we specialize in, it's important to see that you have, or focus on that you have 3 bodies, but more importantly, 3 elements that you need to sustain yourself. The main element, or number 1, would be breath. And we can all agree that you can go without air only a short period of time, while you can go without water for a little bit longer, and of course without food for a little bit longer. So we'll put those 2 here. Water, all right, and food. All right, and let me go ahead and zoom in a little bit so you can check that out. Obviously the cameraman is off today, but we want to make sure that we get this video out, and we don't want to let anything stop us, because this knowledge right here is going to let you learn how to regenerate your body. So right off, our next video actually is going to be about breath. So if you do want to subscribe, you'll probably catch that. And in addition, just to understand where we're coming from with this, is kind of the disclaimer, is that we're really involved in spiritual expansion, meaning that this is more important to us than anything else. And so this is what we've been focusing on for years and years now. And I definitely can see now that it's become more of a fad to be into the whole new age and being about healing the body and activation and higher consciousness. But to us, it's a lot more serious than a fad. It's something that we know we can achieve, we have achieved already, and we've made a lot of headway, especially in the areas of what is called fringe. Even though they throw it in the movies all the time and they show you different things that are capable in this reality, a lot of people don't think that that is true. They keep it on a fictional level. Today actually is about water. So let's go ahead and get right into it. So how this works is basically, as you know it, water is a very vital, necessary part of your existence. So if it is, then why are we not looking deeper into the kind of water or fuel that we're putting into our vital body, okay, to see if, 1, it contains enough energy for us to even do anything with it, and 2, can it actually be perfected to a point where we actually can use water as either not only a fuel, because it is a fuel, but as a super fuel. So how can we purify, cleanse, and refine water? And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Okay, so as I mentioned before, we are water connoisseurs, meaning we got onto this water thing a long time ago. We've been exploring water, seeing how to restructure water, seeing how to purify water, seeing if water can hold memory, see if we can project through water. There's been a lot of stuff going on with the water. So of course, this made us have to understand how water works and how to get it into the stage that we're actually looking for. Keeping in mind that anytime they do something in the laboratory, they need to have a specific kind of water, and that water can have nothing in it. And this is so important, because if you're in some kind of experiment, especially when they're testing for very light traces of things, if there's something in the water, then all those tests are nil. So that means millions and millions of dollars will be wasted. So the ability to actually purify water has been mastered already. But how to restructure it, how to give it energy, those things kind of remain in the area of, I won't just say fringe, but in the area of the unknown for many of the major companies that produce water. But it's Fiji, it's Alpina, it's all these different waters we'll test out around the same as what we're going to show you today goes on with the water. So what we're talking about doing, though, is we're talking about boosting it even higher. And there's a lot of videos out there already that show people pH testing and testing the amount of particles inside of different kind of water. So you can always check out those. This machine here is a very familiar machine for many people. It's called the Big Berkey. I think it's got some water in it now. And actually, we're going to test that water. So let me pull a little bit closer forward here. But this is the Big Berkey water filter. And it uses reverse osmosis filtration and carbon filtration system. There's different filters that you can get. And really, see, for the bang for the buck, we use this to actually purify tap water to a certain degree. in order to cook with it. Because if you start to use your distilled water and waters that you're preparing with other devices to cook with, it could get quite pricey. So that's the next thing that we really want to look at here, especially if you're trying to figure out yourself what you're going to do to purify your filter your water at home. This is what's called a mega home distiller. Okay, and the mega home distiller is your standard home distiller that uses condensation. And we already got a fresh brew of distilled water actually put together here now, and we're going to be using this throughout our experiment. But just so you understand, this distills about 1 gallon of water every 2.5 hours, and that does show up on your power bill. So I will tell you that we often weigh buying the water versus this machine, but of course this machine comes in favor because you don't know where the water that they've been distilling comes from. Not to mention when it sits in those plastic containers, it leaches all of the plastic off the containers, and so you're drinking that system. So here we go. All right, so what we're going to do first is we're going to get familiar with what kind of testing we're going to be doing here and what kind of devices we're going to be using. So this device here is actually your standard TDS or your actual testing meter. This meter is going to give us how many particles per million are actually in the water. And here we are. Okay, so what I bought today for us to do some testing with the different kind of waters is I've gotten some distilled water, which we have here. I have La Cocaína, and I have the big Berkey, which has some water in it we're going to pour out, and then we're also going to grab some tap water, and then we're going to put them into the corresponding cups, soda, tap water, distilled water, and we're going to use this as our cleaner. Okay, so let's do that. So here we go. Incoming. All right, that's going to go in here. So this stuff doesn't break the meters. Then we'll take some of this tap water over here. Okay. And we'll go ahead and pour out some of this distilled water just a little bit because we want to do some testing about the strength of this particular product that we're going to be testing today and how much it can actually take the negative orb off or positive orb off of something. And then we're also going to use this water for our cleaner, since it is the more closer to being neutral. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get into the ppm. That's the parts per million. How many parts per million do these different waters have? And so we're going to go ahead and start off with the yeah, let's go ahead and start off with tap water because that's what people use the most. And so when we put that in, and you should be able to see that on the camera, you'll see that this tap water, which is actually great for tap water these days, is at 153 ppm. Now, we're going to do a little cleansing. And here we go with distilled water. And actually, this is a good distillation. It's at 0. And just for kicks, we're going to test the soda. Gee, Willikers, Batman. It's jumping all around. It hit 600 at first. The machine went into shock. Now it's about 314, and it's trying to level itself out. It's down to 280. It's back to 324. So basically, it's volatile. And the other thing that we're going to test here is we're going to test the water once it's run through the Berkey filter. Now, this is also to give you an idea of what most people are drinking. And remember, we're in Costa Rica, so this is some of the best water that you can really get as far as some of the aqueduct water. But this is still the result of distillation, okay? Meaning that all this flake and scale that you're seeing on the side here is what's in the tap water. And so what's happening is, it's not a joke, this gets around your glands and it gets around different parts of the body and it calcifies those areas, making you unable to generate energy. Okay, so this is a serious thing, the water thing, especially if you're trying to figure out how you're going to preserve yourself. So let's go ahead and get this out of here so we don't break it. And then let's go ahead and clean it off. And then we're going to also test this water coming out of the Berkey filtration system, which is here. Okay, so this is your Berkey. Okay, so your Berkey basically took down the ppm only like 6. So you can see that, as I've always said, that gravity filters, and it does, of course, filter out many of the pesticides and different things that are really harmful in the water. But overall, unless the water goes through distillation process, then it's still going to have removed the same amount of ppm that was in it initially. In addition, it's important to also realize that that city water is generally has a lot higher ppms. So what I was saying about the Big Berkey is basically that it still contains, the water as we've tested it, still contains a relatively high amount of ppm, which is basically the same amount that was in the tap water, showing that realistically the filtration of the Big Berkey system, it does remove a lot of the elements that would be very harmful to the body, but it doesn't remove everything, which pushes us into using distilled water. But there's something very important about distilled water that you need to know. And this is because many people recommend just drinking distilled water or going to drink distilled water. And then you see other information that's kind of contrary to that. So I'm going to explain this very briefly so you can understand why there's so much disinformation about whether you should drink tap water or whether you should drink distilled water, okay? And if distilled water is actually bad for you, okay? And so let me explain to you how this works. When you distill water and you get it down to 0 ppm, like what you're seeing right there, it now has nothing in it, okay? And water's innate ability is actually to absorb minerals, okay? So we won't get into any of the scientific side, we won't get into any of the spiritual side, we'll just get into it directly that it needs to absorb those minerals, okay? So when you drink distilled water, what happens is that the water starts pulling the minerals out of the body. And so it could be something immediate that people begin to notice. Other people start working through it and then their body compensates for it and they don't feel it as much, but it's still going on. And what I'm talking about is basically a certain level of tiredness and weakness that begins to occur with the body over time as all the elements that are basically supposed to be inside the body, all the minerals that are supposed to be in the body, are leached out of the body through the distilled water. So how you fix this is you just add minerals to the water, what's called trace minerals to the water. And it just so happens that also the element that we're using today does add a mineral base to the water. So it works in many different ways, but this is the most amazing part. So let's get into this. So let me explain this to you of what ORP is and why it's so valuable for you to actually know what the ORP is of what you're consuming, because it has a lot to do with the fountain of youth. And here we go. ORP is oxygen reduction potential, okay? ORP. And I'm going to explain this simple. It actually works contrary to how we generally do our calculations about positive and negative. So that's the only thing to really catch on to here, that actually positive ORP is what you don't want, or the bad one. Negative ORP is actually what you want. That's the good one. And so let me explain it very briefly. What ORP is basically, it's how much is the element oxidizing. So to understand oxidation, apple when left out starts to turn brown. That is oxidation. It's basically getting older, right?
Let's take a look at the following experiment. First, take 2 apples of equal freshness. One has no label, while the other is labeled H-. Dip the unlabeled apple into the water for 30 seconds, take it out and dry it. Then dip the apple labeled with H- into water which contains 1 gram of Mega H. Dip for 30 seconds, take it out and dry it. Store both apples in a dark cupboard for 6 weeks. The result shows that the apple labeled H- has a higher level of freshness.
The apple that was dipped in water containing Mega H was completely protected from free radical damage and dehydration. This same process occurs in human cells. Our cells are constantly under attack from free radicals and are fighting the process of dehydration. Negative H ions, or Mega H, protect the cells from dehydration by attracting water molecules into the cell and by protecting against the ravaging effects of positively charged free radicals.
So from there, what you're measuring with the positive ORP is how rapidly is it making something get older. Versus if you obviously have some negative ORP, that means it's not making it oxidize at all. And in fact, it may be hydrating it, replenishing it, regenerating it, okay? And so this is very important, especially for the test that we're about to conduct, because you're going to see something amazing. So just remember, positive ORP, which is like soda. We have some soda here. We're going to test it. And last time I checked, it was positive 400, okay? So it's very oxidizing, okay? And then while distilled water, I believe last time we checked, was also still oxidizing, but it was around 80. And then tap water 200. But we're going to go ahead and get some real figures here, and we're going to put those figures on the board. And then that's going to be your reference to knowing exactly which one of these waters contain what, and how you can determine, what's going to be the best water for you. And now we get to the main part, the climax of today's show. And it's about how this amazing product that we're using changes everything, okay? And this product that we're talking about is Patrick Flanagan's Megahydrate. Okay, so you see it here. I came into this product somewhat on a humbug, going through Amazon for hydration and hydrogen and different things like that. And what happened was I came across an article that a guy basically said, well, I don't know if this product is really working or not, but what I do know is that when I tested it on the ORP meter, that it actually had a negative ORP, but I don't know what that means. And I was like, what? A negative ORP? Let me go ahead and check it out. So I went ahead and bought some. I got it into the house. I finally got a chance to sit down and do the test on the meters, and I had some amazing results. The same results that I'm going to show you today. This other device here is known as a HANA HI98121, for those people that are looking for it. So what this is that this is an ORP tester and a pH tester. It also tests the temperature of water. So here we go. We're just going to take a little bit, okay? And there we go. Yeah, there we go. I do have some distilled water over here so we can test. Anyway, everyone's seen what's going on. This camera's been on the whole time. So here we go. This is the miraculous part. Now remember, I'm going to take this cleaner, okay, just to give you a good idea, because remember the cleaner's got different stuff in it, but it gives us a good millivolt reading, right? So this thing, powered off on me there. There we go. Okay, so you see it's giving out a positive 267 ORP, okay? Now watch. Boom. ORP's going down. ORP's at 14. ORP's at negative 43. ORP's at 178. Oh, gee, Willa, because ORP's at 257. ORP's at 290. ORP's at 300. ORP's still going. ORP's at 335, and we've only put a partial capsule of this in here. So this is it. This is proof beyond the shadow of a doubt that you've just increased the energetic potential and reduce the oxidization principle of this distilled water, okay? The best of the best water anyway, but let's keep going with this, okay? We're going to go ahead and clean it off with our cleaner, and we're going to go to this tap water here, okay? Okay, and then tap water is at 148 ORP or 49 ORP now, okay? So we'll go ahead and add this to it, just a little bit. Okay, and we just add a little bit. You can see how much was added, and the ORP's already dropping. So we're not even talking about a lot of this here. We're talking about small amounts of this hydrogen ions. The water starts dropping drastically as far as the oxidation levels. Okay? To a point where what we did was we took a small amount, about this much of this, maybe about that much, and we added it into an entire gallon of water, and then we tested it again and shown that it was actually able to change a large amount of the water. And let's go ahead and do that now. And again, what makes this amazing is that we're just testing water, so imagine what this is doing inside of the body. Remember, that's the key thing here, is to change the water, because the body is 70% water, But this is also a capsule that you just put into your system. All right, so that's going to do it for today. So what did we learn? We learned a lot. We learned exactly how to get the pH higher. Man, we didn't even test the pH. Man, I guess that'll have to be another show, but the pH does raise. Now remember, the whole goal with pH is to actually get it into the balance, but this supplement actually does add about 2 pH to the water, so it gives it more of an alkaline nature. But again, I don't want to take up any more of your time. This is something that's amazing. You'll feel the energetic potential, so there's no placebo. We have only the stuff that does the major metamorphosis with your body, because we're into no placebo. We're trying to get somewhere, we're gonna get somewhere, and we're doing this now.